I call to order meeting of the Resource Conservation Commission for May 10th, 2021 at 6:37 p.m. First agenda item 1A is appointment of the timekeeper, and I think Chris is going to be our timekeeper today. Is that all right with you, Chris? Fantastic. Our second agenda item is public appearances for non-agenda items. There is no one here in the chamber. Is there anyone online?
No, ma'am, there's not.
Okay, then we will move on to agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to check out the draft minutes for the March 8th, 2021 RCC meeting?
There weren't any when I looked on the packet.
Yeah, so those didn't make it into this packet, so I'll have to put those into the June meeting packet and have those approved at the same time as May.
Okay, well, we will postpone that approval until the next meeting. I don't think we need to vote on that. I think we can just skip it. Is that right, or should we?
Am I looking at the wrong packet? It was in my packet. Did anyone else?
I saw it too.
There is a.
What I saw was there were technically minutes included, but they were blank. So I can take a look.
Yeah, there's
you are correct. They are blank. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a very basic outline, but it's not. There's no details like there typically
It
is.
was my most efficient minutes yet.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 4A, election of the new Resource Conservation Commission chair, as we our most recent chair has left the commission. So I will take nominations from the floor.
I nominate Ron.
Great, Ron, do you accept that nomination?
Yeah, I'll accept it.
Are there any other nominations? Well, fantastic. So let's take a vote on Ron French as our new RCC chair.
I think we need a second on that, Gabriella.
Oh, yes, thank you.
A second.
So I think I got a second from. I think there was like a second from Chris.
What was that?
Something's going on with the sound.
Don't do that again, Shelley.
I think Shelley just got in her second before Chris.
Okay, so moved by Diane, seconded by Shelley. And so all in favor of electing Ron French as our new RCC chair, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. So Ron, if you want to take over, it's your meeting, starting with item 4B.
Oh, okay, wow.
First of all, thank you, Ron, for agreeing to serve.
Okay. Well, so I'm new at this, so I got my Robert Rules of Order, but if I forget something, just please let me know.
No worries.
Okay, item 4B on the agenda, resolution R-67-21, authorized to increase stormwater rates. Discussion, I mean, not discussion, but I guess, Claudia, you're going to go over that with us?
So these first 3 resolutions, there were identical resolutions that were passed through council already for these items identically, just because the timing, they needed to go through faster than we had an RCC meeting scheduled. So that's kind of the reason why, but it's on the agenda and we can still discuss and give a recommendation.
Okay, do we have to make a motion to approve the new rates?
Yeah, I think we typically do a motion first, right?
Yes.
I will move approval of R-6721.
I second.
Was there a second?
I second.
Okay,
Diane seconded.
Okay.
And then we can have some discussion about that before we
Yeah, take a
would
vote.
do a vote.
Okay, open up for discussion.
Claudia, I have a question on and I'm having a hard time accessing the page with the numbers on the stormwater revenue analysis. Can you pull that up?
Yeah, one sec. Let me get to that. Yes, and I will go ahead and share my screen with that.
Okay, my question is near the bottom where it says contributions by muni not recovered through rates, but there's nothing in the estimated columns. When does that get added?
Would you like me to answer that one?
Yeah, Misty, if you want to jump in, that would be great.
Yeah, so the contributions both from Muni and from the developer, we don't budget for either one of those because really it's not cash in the door. It's when the developer or the TID is usually the example with the Muni. They put in the infrastructure and give it to the stormwater utility. And then the stormwater utility will recover that cost through depreciation through the life of the facility, but not upfront. So since there's no cash going out the door to pay for the facility, we also don't account for the value of that coming in.
Well, the line above it, I'm not necessarily talking about the developer, but the line above it, the 4,200 account, there was over like $1.5 million for 2020. I'm not clear why it's so high in 2020, but we don't expect anything in 21, or what's the situation?
It's project specific. So that 2020 project is the McKee pond that was put in kind of at Seminole and McKee, where the TID paid for a portion of it. And then there's other TID projects that would have contributed. Fish Hatchery Road, I think, was another one that had some infrastructure contributed. So it's project by project that would be.
So we're not expecting any TID contributions in 2021?
So we don't, this is based on budget, so we never budget for it, though
Okay.
we may have some expected. And again, the calculation for what the rates need to be don't factor that amount in there. Those amounts are in there simply so that we can tie out to the audit report. So yes, they are zero because we don't budget for them to be conservative, but that doesn't affect the percent increase that would be needed to meet the budget.
And then, Misty, when revenues exceed expenses like they did in the last 4 years, what happens with that excess?
So that stays within the stormwater fund. So the stormwater fund is its own business unit, for lack of a better phrase, and all of that stays within there. But we really want to look at that yellow highlighted line. So you'll see the last time that revenues exceeded expenses was in 2017, when you're looking at actual cash revenue, not those contributed fixed assets.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Misty, how are the cost overruns handled?
So those are also absorbed within the stormwater budget. So generally, if there's an overrun, it will need a budget amendment. Depending on the situation, the dollar amount, et cetera, it would go through council. Otherwise, if it's personnel or the bigger thing in here is depreciation is what caused those overruns. Those are just included in the stormwater fund and absorbed that way.
Okay.
And I could jump in here and summarize a little bit of the discussion that was had in finance and common council previous to this. And Misty, you can jump on any of this, but this is what I understand from what Misty has communicated. This increase only really addresses the 2021 budget and not any future capital projects. And as you know, you are aware, and hopefully we'll be more aware in the coming years, we have some significant capital projects that could cost the city quite a bit of money. So for example, the sub-zero kettle study for that area, plus we just, Claudia and the contractor just had a presentation on the Lake Barney project, which would be coming down the line later. So anyway, that's all to say that there is a strong possibility that we'll need to increase it again down the line, maybe even as soon as next year. And then Misty also pulled some comparables. So for our average residential home, the annualized stormwater utility rate is $75 currently. With the increase, it'll go to $103 per year. And for other communities in the area, Monona is currently at 100, Middleton is at 180, Sun Prairie is at 140, and Verona is at 66. So just kind of give you a sense of where some of the other municipalities in the area are at. Okay. And this did pass finance and council.
Any more discussion?
You know, I just want to make an observation, and I know we're on a tight schedule, so I'll make this observation, and I think we can come back to this at a different meeting. But based on what I was looking at, the urban residences or urban buildings seem to be conserving water. Their water usage, average water usage, seems to be going down. Stormwater usage, and the rural seems to be going up. So, and if I'm misinterpreting that, let me know, but I'm thinking maybe we need to focus on some water conservation in the rural areas. And I'm not talking about the non-residential areas, I'm talking about the residential consumption.
The one thing I'd like to clarify quick though is that this is for stormwater, which isn't based off of water consumption. So the water rates and the sewer rates both are, but stormwater, especially for residential, is based on a flat dollar amount per home.
Well, let me look at that other chart then, because where's it down here? Maybe I'm mixing this up with something else in the packet.
Sure. Sorry to keep interrupting, Chair, but Diane, you're welcome to send me questions too. If you see it, maybe you and I can talk.
Okay.
More specifics.
Any more discussion on this resolution? Okay, I'd like to take a vote on the motion that our commission approves a 38% rate increase. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The resolution is approved. Okay, next on the agenda, item 4C, a resolution R-63-21, resolution approving 2021 to 2023 median mowing contract.
I move to
So Claudia,
approve.
you said these were all these. Go ahead. Motion to approve.
We need to make a, yeah, I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, open for discussion.
I can jump in here real quick and just let you know. So this did pass all of the other committees it went through, plus council, because we had to get it in because the mowing season has started. The reason that I actually referred this one in the following resolution to RCC. It wasn't originally referred, but the reason why is I wanted this ongoing expense to be on the radar of RCC, because I would be interested in having a conversation about thinking about how we do our medians in the city and whether or not we can incorporate natives or plants that do not need to be regularly mowed in those medians, rather than taking on the expense of a regular mowing contract. And I brought up concerns about a 3-year contract and the inability to make changes over the next 3 years because of that. My understanding from the Parks Director is that we are able to make small changes, and so if we did want to, if we did want to make changes, that there's a possibility. But anyway, I think that it's a broader conversation. I would be interested in if the commission has anything to say about the possibility of transitioning some of the medians to natives or other types of plants, or maybe looking at new projects like the Lacy Road, the Cyan Road reconstruction. Can we incorporate plants that do not need regular mowing? Or do we delay the mowing season till the end of May to protect pollinators? I think some of those questions should be discussed here. So I'd be interested in any of those opinions. I think that's something we have to bring up again in the future, but that's why I referred it.
Gabriella, I share your concern. I know I had a conversation with Bill's predecessor, and in our neighborhood, we converted 2 or 3 roundabouts that the city used to mow, and we converted those to plants, perennials. But the condition was, at least with Bill's predecessor, was if we do that, then we need to be responsible for maintaining it. We need to be responsible for weeding and that sort of thing. I think it's a great idea to do that somewhere else in the city, but I don't know that we're going to find people that are willing to volunteer their time to maintain it.
Mhm.
Maybe, Bill, you have a different view on that.
No, I agree with that. It's something that we would encourage with landscaping that, we don't have the staff to get out there and do all the special weeding and everything, but, it's definitely something we could put into our contracts, which eventually, if taxes go up and everything. So that's something we want to avoid, but, I'm open to, beautifying and landscaping those areas as long as they can be maintained in good order.
Yeah,
So maybe we can put that on a future agenda.
okay, yeah, I think that would be a good item to discuss in the future, but I'm supportive of that because I think it'd be great to have more of our medians into, native landscape areas. My only concern is that hopefully it wouldn't be attracting any other wildlife to those areas that might get injured or killed in the traffic. So, but I think that's a great idea, Gabriella.
Yeah, just another consideration is if we had native plantings in medians, we probably would not want to do prescribed burns on them just because of the proximity to traffic. So we would have to use other methods for weed control and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia, are you aware of any sort of plants that aren't necessarily deeply rooted, but are maybe something closer to a grass, but that stays low profile and doesn't grow so that it doesn't require regular mowing? Do you know of any sort of plants like that that exist as options?
I know that the DOT has a mix called, I believe it's No Mow Fescue or something like that. It's not a native, but it is a plant that needs less frequent mowing. I don't believe you never mow it because you would still need to keep down woody vegetation and that kind of thing. But I guess that's one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are short prairie plant mixes that could be used out there in those areas. Any more discussion on this resolution? Okay, so let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the medium mowing contract, that was for, who was that again for? Johnson? No, that was the next one.
Prime Landscapes.
Prime
Landscape, approving the contract for Prime Landscape. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
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 all those opposed? Okay, motion approved. Next item on the agenda is item 4D, Resolution R-64-21, resolution approving 2021-2023 median landscape maintenance contract. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
I'll second.
Second motion, open for discussion. Sorry for the sun ray. I don't have any shades in this window.
I guess I'll just add one small thing because these resolutions are connected, but I do think that one thing that I didn't maybe emphasize enough in my last statement was that I do think we should talk a little bit about protecting pollinators, because I know there are other communities in Wisconsin that are doing things like no mow May, which is really hard to say out loud, but less frequent mowing in this time of year to protect pollinators that are maybe not fully active and could be killed by mowing. So I think that's something that we should talk about in our park system and in our medians, maybe for a future year. And it's related to both of these resolutions.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let's take a vote on this motion to approve or disapprove. All those in favor of Johnson snow removal, approval of their median landscape maintenance contract, all in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion approved. Item 4E, Resolution R-88-21, amending the 2021 refuse and recycling fund budget for fencing and gates at the recycling center. Is there a motion to approve this contract? Approve this change?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
Any open for discussion?
Claudia, I'm wondering why we couldn't add the gates later if they're needed. Would that save dollars, in which case we could get the shredder, or is that not an option?
So the compost screening machine is what is currently budgeted for, and that's, I believe, over a $30,000 machine. So we were going to use some of the carryover from last year, plus what was budgeted this year in order to purchase that machine. One thing that's come up that's more pressing than the compost screening machine, I guess in the opinion of staff, is getting fencing to put around the facility. And the purpose of the fencing would be to help keep litter from flying onto adjacent properties. This has been, I guess, an ongoing problem for years, and basically we'll get calls from the neighbors, and we'll have to send staff out there to basically pick up litter for a day at a time, half a day, a full day, just going through the neighborhood picking up litter. And when this happened most recently, we had a really windy day. We just brainstormed what can we do to save staff hours. I'm sure you're aware, the staff is kind of at capacity, so anything we can do to make our work more effective. So this came up as an idea, putting up fencing so that litter will, hopefully most of it will be caught on the fence and will be an easier area to pick up if we do have flyaway.
Claudia, where would the fencing go? I'm just trying to visualize it.
Sure. So around the back of the cardboard containers,
Yeah.
we were going to look into putting taller fences in that area. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that these containers also get lifted up in order to be put into the pelletary truck. And that's probably the most likely time that material is going to fly away. So we do need a taller fence in that area. And then along, I don't think it's been decided exactly where, but somewhere along the property line on Fish Hatchery there, because it can go both ways. It either goes into the farm field, I guess to the west of the facility, and it can also go to the east. So we would have a shorter fence along the road there.
Okay. And
What
where would
kind
the
of
gates go? Well, would it be two gates? I'm sorry, Diane, go ahead.
That's all right. What kind of fencing? And again, my question about the gate, this says that it's for the fencing and a gate, but we're not using the gate now. So could we save money by just waiting on the gate? And what kind of fencing are you suggesting?
Yeah, so the tall fencing would be, I'm not sure if you've seen, well, you've been to the Dane County landfill. So how they have that tall fencing that's kind of a mesh-like material. So that would be something that we're looking for the area behind the dumpsters where we need a taller fence. And then the other fence that's closer to the road would probably be chain link. Maybe green or brown.
So would the fence go across, there's that sort of a road that goes behind the maintenance building over to the recycling site? Would the fence go across there, across that asphalt?
Let me pull up a map and I'll share my screen. All right, so this is the recycling drop-off site over here. This should load shortly. So the taller fence was going to go along the backside. Oops.
There you go.
The taller fence was going to go along the backside here, and then the shorter fence. There were two options that we discussed, and I can't remember which one we landed on. So Bill, if you happen to know, let me know. One option we discussed was putting it closer to the road. The other option we discussed was putting it here and then tying into a gate system here. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is probably the option we would go with, just because it gives folks a little bit of a turn area to turn around if they do happen to come when the facility is closed. So yeah, probably something more like this would be the shorter fence. Over here would be the tall fence. And then exactly where the gate would go is TBD. We need to work with IT to figure out where it would make sense to put a gate from a perspective of getting license plate numbers. If someone were to come, find the facility closed, and then leave material, we would want to make sure that we can cite those people for illegal dumping. So exactly where the gate goes might be coordinated with the location of the cameras.
So we would have two gates there.
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
Well, why don't we, since we're not planning on using the gates, why don't we save the money and put the gates in if and when we decide to use gates?
So that's an option, but Diane, the gates that we're looking into are not expensive gate systems. They're probably less than $2,000 for both of them. The bigger expense is going to be the fencing. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't see that as a bad investment than having someone come back at a later date and install that, because you always have to pay to get someone there.
So are we proposing to have those gates closed at a certain time period?
Not at this time. I think that's something that is kind of a recurring topic at RCC and should continue to be a discussion point. One of the difficulties with closing the gate system is currently our facility is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We don't have staff here at 7 p.m. to close the gate. So that's an issue. Usually the folks who work at this site are 7 to 3. So there needs to be a little bit more discussion on exactly who would be responsible for closing this gate and how that would work. Or I guess another option is to change the hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, maybe this is an item we should have a discussion on later on as a future agenda item, because I'd like to get that cleared up at some point. So it doesn't continue to always be a discussion item.
Yep, and the main purpose of this resolution is to just make the funding available so we can install. The fence is going to be the big expense, and then a gate if we feel that's appropriate.
Okay.
Claudia, will you be asking for the screener in the next CIP budget then?
I do think that's still a priority. So yeah, that would just be something we would ask for in the next budget cycle.
Well, is there a possibility that it could be not part of the next cycle, or someone would reject it? We'd have to wait.
That's always a possibility. Council
We'd have to wait for a longer time period, even though we might have the money now.
So what we'll do is we'll request carryover. There was carryover from last year, and then there will be some carryover from this year as well, because the fence will not be the entire budget of what we have for the screener this year. So those two items would be able to be carried over. So the amount that we would need to ask for would be less than the cost of what a screening machine would cost. So I think that would help the help the cause, so to speak, of getting a screening machine, but it's never guaranteed.
Okay. Any more discussion on this resolution? Okay, request that we take a vote on the resolution R-888-21 approving the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Not opposed? Okay, resolution approved. Next on the agenda item is item 4F, resolution R-68-21, approval to purchase street sweeper in 2021. Is there a motion?
I make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Any open for discussion now?
Claudia, how much was budgeted for this?
Oops, I apologize. I don't have that handy. I know that this is within budget. So this is, we're not asking for a budget amendment to get additional funding. This is within budget.
I was just wondering if the savings was available to be used elsewhere.
So that would be, that's something that I can look into. If we did want to use that savings elsewhere, that would be a budget amendment to get approval to do that.
Okay.
But I can take that as a follow-up and determine how much under budget it came.
It looks like the referral sheet says the savings is 28,000.
Well, no, that was just versus buying a brand new one.
Right. Yeah. Not versus what we
Oh.
had budgeted.
Well, so the 2021 CIP includes 295,000. That's the budgeted amount in the CIP.
Oh,
Really?
perfect.
59,000 savings. Good.
Yeah. So I guess I have a,
I have a screener.
so I have a question. So I guess it's just a process question. So if we have a budget for an item that's been approved in the budget, we have to go through the process of approving the purchase of that equipment? Or is there?
Yes. If it's over, I believe, $25,000, it's the purchase goes through council as well.
Okay. Okay. And so the new street sweeper, wasn't there a contest to have it painted by some local class? I mean,
So it was a contest to have a design
Yeah.
to put onto the side of the street sweeper. So they won't actually be painting the street sweeper. They would create a design and then we would have that printed and put on the street sweeper.
Okay.
So yes, there was a contest.
Okay. And was there a winner?
You included a picture in the packet, right?
Was that
Yes.
the winner?
That's
Okay.
a different agenda topic. Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was the winner. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, take it up for a vote for approving resolution R-68-21, the approval of the purchase of a street sweeper in 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. A resolution approved. Item 4G, resolution R-94-21, approving a memorandum of understanding between the city and Dane County regarding a new silting basin on county property. Is there a motion?
A motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
Open for discussion?
I think this is a great idea. I don't know who came up with it, but kudos to whoever did.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do we have a sense of what the ongoing cost of maintaining this additional facility is going to be to the city?
So this is going to be a relatively small facility. I believe it's a 10 by 10 stilling basin. So I would imagine that that's going to fill up maybe once every 5 years, and we'll have to go out there with a I'm forgetting the name of the type of machinery. I apologize, but we would basically go out there with machinery that we have in-house, and we would scoop it out, once every 5 years or whenever it fills up, and then we would reseed it at that time. So pretty minimal maintenance requirements.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, let's take a vote on approving resolution R-94-21. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Resolution approved. Item agenda 4H, resolution R-76-21. Resolution approving contract with EOR for stormwater flood study near Sherrill Drive. Motion?
Aye. I move that.
Was that a
Second.
second, Diane?
Second.
Well, that was a first, but I could be a second.
Okay.
I'll do second.
Okay. Gabriella did second. Open for discussion.
Claudia, last year, I think it was last year, could have been earlier this year, you mentioned that there were some areas, when we had a couple of residents from this Sherrill Parkway or Sherrill Drive come to talk to RCC, you mentioned a couple of the other areas in the city that were having even worse stormwater problems. And I think one was over by Kings Way. Has that one been resolved? I guess my question is this now the highest priority problem, stormwater problem that we have like this?
In terms of street flooding, I would say the highest priority issue is north of Dunn's Marsh, where water actually goes into buildings. The other one is Curry Court, which, as you know, is already under contract. So no, I would not say that this is, based on our ranking system, this is not the highest priority.
Then although I appreciate your attention to this, and I know that we've heard complaints from the residents, but why are we moving this ahead of the Dunn's Marsh? Or are we moving it ahead?
So Dunn's Marsh is currently, I believe, proposed to start in 2023. And this is being moved forward. Bill, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, the neighbors in the areas have, had a lot of public input with regard to the project, and something that the council would like to see move forward, and we just put it ahead of the other projects to get it studied and see what needs to be done there. We don't have a solution in mind right now, but we're trying to figure out how big the problem is and just move that forward.
So is this, I don't mean to be insensitive to their issue, because I can't imagine having to deal with that, but if Dunn's Marsh situation is worse, in spite of, I guess, the squeaky wheel, shouldn't we be giving Dunn's Marsh the attention first?
So this isn't the mitigation, this is just the study to figure out what the potential mitigation could be. So we could add it to the CIP in this year and figure out where it would fit in the grand scheme of when we would do it. So we might not do the mitigation right away. That's at least my understanding. But at this point, we don't even know what the mitigation might be. Is that an incorrect, Claudia or Bill?
Where? Yeah,
So
where
the
is
Dunn's Marsh feasibility study is 2022, I believe. So the feasibility study to determine what the options are in that area is not happening now. So I think that's the point that Diane's making.
So there's already been a stormwater flood study for Dunn's Marsh?
Incorrect. There has not.
There has not. Okay.
Right.
Well, I can appreciate that there's some political pressure to move this one forward, and I appreciate that there's a need to move this forward, but I'm opposed to putting it ahead of Dunn's Marsh if the Dunn's Marsh situation is worse, as Claudia says that it is.
I think I would tend to agree with Diane as well. Any more discussion?
Is there a reason that staff, I mean, like, I'm curious about how, because I mean, I've heard from a lot of these residents, we've had a couple of people come to RCC to speak on this. I guess, you know, obviously staff does the ranking, but is there a reason we're not taking a look at Dunn's Marsh this year versus previous years? I guess I just don't necessarily, I don't know if it's a zero-sum game. Do we have to, is it one or the other, or can we consider both in this year for a feasibility study?
So Dunn's Marsh was already included in the CIP because it was identified as an important project before this one was identified. So this one currently is not in the CIP. So we are able to use other funds for this project without requiring a budget amendment. In order to move Dunn's Marsh forward, since it's already in the CIP, that would require a budget amendment to do that. That's just some background.
I'm sorry, but I think you should jump through those hoops then. If that's what's necessary and Dunn's Marsh is a higher priority, then I think Dunn's Marsh should be done. And if you can do both this year, great. And if you can't, then I think we need to stick with the priority rankings and tackle them in that order.
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion?
I guess I would just say, I mean, I'm in support of this project. I would also be interested in looking at Dunn's Marsh and pushing that forward if that's, I guess for me personally, I can only vote on what comes before me. And so I support this project. I think this is something that needs to get done. And while I sympathize with the position that something else might be a higher priority, in terms of this, I support this moving forward. And I also would be interested in looking at moving Dunn's Marsh forward earlier too, as an addition. It looks like we have $51,000 in savings from the street sweeper, which is stormwater utility money. Maybe that's a possibility for additional funding. So I guess I personally am in support of this, and I would hope it's not an either or, but a both.
What's excuse me, what's the contract amount for EOR?
Let me see if I can look that up.
$47,150.
Okay. I mean, I think I agree with Gabriella. It'd be nice if we could do both of them at once, and if EOR could do them at both, that would be great. I don't know if there would be any cost savings in it, but if they did both of them.
Claudia, how much was budgeted, do you remember, for Dunn's Marsh, the Dunn's Marsh feasibility study?
I don't remember that offhand. That is a much bigger drainage area that goes there than this. So I would imagine it to be more expensive than this one. I don't have that offhand though.
Well, we just saved $59,000 on the street sweeper. So would it be possible to advance the Dunn's Marsh study to this year with that savings?
Yeah, and that's something Bill and I are going to have to discuss in terms of workload and whether or not that's something we can squeeze in, just because we are very busy currently. So I guess I would also like to see that one move forward. I think that is our most pressing project of the outstanding projects. I think a discussion just needs to be had on workload.
Yeah.
Could you clarify too, because there's two parts of this. There's the 35,000. So I'm looking at the resolution right now. There's the 35,800 going into. Oh, so it's just one amount. There's two different amounts listed in the resolution.
Right. So if you go to the here, let me share my screen.
Can you pull the resolution up, Claudia?
Here, so So this is the purchase order information. So one amount that's for the flood analysis and the expanded modeling. So basically within their contract, they have different tasks. And one task is to do the flood analysis, the modeling, the public information meetings, that kind of thing. And then another task is doing a backyard drainage policy. Because currently our policy is that if it's on private property, that's something that the private resident is responsible for maintaining. And if there's any grading that needs to be done or anything like that, then the property owner would be responsible for the costs of that. And there is interest in potentially allowing residents to apply for having the city go in and do that work. So prerequisites that I would see in order to have that is there would need to be a public easement granted to the city in order to put in potential infrastructure. And there would need to be, I guess, a need as analyzed by staff to do that. So those are the two different tasks.
Okay.
This is what I proposed, Claudia. I know that you said that you have to jump through a couple of more hoops to advance the Duns Marsh for this year. But it sounds like with staffing issues, you may not be able to tackle Duns Marsh and Sherrill Drive. And again, I think we should stick with the priorities that you've assigned and do the Duns Marsh. And if staff time allows, then add the Sherrill Drive project.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that I'll add is some of the staff time that goes into this is putting out an RFP and collecting proposals and all of that. There's a lot of work up front. So I cannot make, we have this contract and proposal in hand. And for Duns Marsh, with the stormwater utility rate increase, I was directed to hold off on doing some of our typical contracts because we weren't sure if that would be approved. So I do have several contracts that I need to work on before I would be able to work on this. So just, kind of an FYI, this one's here, we have it. The other one still needs to be written and probably, wouldn't be done for a while.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask is even if it is a priority and you wanted to work on it this year and we said, let's hold off on this one, I wanted to ask, would you even be able to work on the other one? And I think it sounds like you answered that. So.
Yeah, it definitely would not.
More than likely not.
Realistically, probably the soonest that I could work on an RFP for this is the fall. And, then it goes out to bid for 6 weeks and then it comes back and we review them and, then we might interview them. And then after that, we would send it through council and that's usually at least 4 weeks. So it is a long process. And by that time, it might be December. By the time we have the next one approved and ready to hit the road. So I think if there is an interest in staying with the priorities, then I guess my recommendation would be to go through and potentially do a council amendment to get Duns Marsh to start next year rather than, I think it's 2022, or sorry, next year is 2022. I think it's 2023 because I think it's not starting quite next year. So I think that would probably be the way to go. And that would coincide with the timeline of when we could probably get to it anyway.
I'd be happy to look at that for the CIP amendment and see if we can move Duns Marsh up higher. That would be something I'd be interested in, and I can work with Claudia on that. since clearly that's the will of the commission that it's something that we want to look at. So I'm happy to take a closer look at that for the CIP budget amendments, or I'm sorry, CIP amendments.
Is there a possibility that we could amend EOR's contract to include Dunn's Marsh? We have
So
to
no,
go
that would
through
still
the
require a
process.
budget amendment. We
I beg
can't.
your pardon?
That would still require a budget amendment to get them to work on Dunn's Marsh rather
Is
than,
that shorter than going through the RFP process?
right.
So if we found money and then if we asked them to provide us a cost estimate to do Dunn's Marsh, and we found that it was, let's say, less than $59,000, is there some possibility that we could amend their contract, get a budget amendment, and have them work on both flood studies?
I guess, Bill, that would be a discussion. Usually we do put these out to RFP. This one we did not, just because of timing. It was perceived to be very pressing. So we did just go to, we have an RFQ. So we went to the contractor that we felt was the most qualified based on the qualifications that they submitted. But typically we go through the RFP process. So I think that would be a discussion on whether we would feel comfortable or whether we would want to do that.
And Claudia, thanks. Everybody's had really good discussion points on this. I think this has been a really good discussion. Claudia, one question. So typically when we have the feasibility study, does the project happen the next year typically?
So that has the way.
We catch up there maybe?
It doesn't necessarily have to happen that way. One of the benefits of doing it kind of on the heels of the feasibility study is you can have the same project team work on it, which is nice because obviously a lot of information isn't written down. You know, we do have final reports and we try to put all of the information in there, and we have public information meetings, but there's still a lot of information. You know, you can really just hit the ground running if you are able to continue with the same consultant and continue with the project the following year. So that's definitely a benefit of doing it one right after the other, but it is not necessary that you would do it that way.
I appreciate your explanation, and I also appreciate the work that was involved in this and the reason that you advanced this one versus Dunn's Marsh. And I'm going to vote for this, but I just strongly encourage you to see if we can move the Dunn's Marsh project up, please.
Yeah, I agree with Diane as well. If there's a way you can get it moved up or have EOR contract amendment, that would be great.
I will follow up with Claudia on this in regards to potentially looking at it, this for the CIP process, whatever that looks like. I will follow up with Claudia on that regard so the committee knows that.
Okay, great. Any more discussion? Okay, let's take a vote on resolution R-76-21. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion approved, resolution approved. Next on the agenda item is item 4I, draft specific vegetation management plan. So Claudia, turn it over to you. Where are we at?
Before we get into that, we're 6 minutes behind schedule. So we're doing pretty good considering all those resolutions we went through and considering we started a little bit late. So I think we're on a good track. So let's keep the good pace going.
Okay.
I'm sorry, could I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Do we want to move the Lacy Road discussion up so that Bill can leave? since he doesn't need to be here for
I'm
the.
enjoying the meeting, so.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I know you're in a lot of meetings, so all right.
Okay, Claudia.
Okay, so you saw in the packet that we've put together a site-specific vegetation management plan. So what we did there is we put together a, and I won't go into too much detail just because I know we did that at the last meeting, but we put together a ranking system for how projects would qualify to receive additional funding to do additional native vegetation management. So that was based on several factors, such as existing vegetation condition as of a inventory that was completed last year by Field and Stream, how large the facility is, because larger facilities are generally better from a habitat perspective and an ecological perspective. Larger facilities are better than smaller ones. 4 quarter-acre facilities are not equivalent to one acre facility. The larger facility is going to be better from a habitat perspective. Another one was public education opportunities. So how close is this facility to a park or a bike path? And then also secondarily, if it's not close to either one of those, is it located in a residential area? Then it would get a B in for that. And then if it's not really expected to get a whole lot of foot traffic, for example, if it's in an industrial area, then it would get a C for that category. Another category was infiltration potential. So if it is if it has a infiltration facility, then it would receive an A in that category. And if it doesn't have an infiltration facility, then it would be a B in that category. So there was a ranking system. And then also, if it doesn't have vegetative management, the other management strategy that we use is mowing. And then the mowing occurs twice per year. There are a few, generally that's going to happen in the spring and the fall, just based on staff availability and when it makes sense to do that based on competing priorities. There are some areas where we made notes about specific weeds that we might want to target, and based on the weeds, we might want to try to do that mowing in a specific month, so we can get in there before the seeds are in bloom. So for specific ones, there were timing considerations, but otherwise it's just generally sometime in the spring and sometime in the fall. And then there are some facilities that don't have any maintenance at all. And the reason for that, there are a few facilities, one that I can think of, where it just has a lot of brush or woody growth around it. And so that's not a priority at this time to remove that and restore it to natives. So that's obviously not an area that we can mow. There's another facility where the banks are too steep, so we're really not able to get there safely with our mowing equipment. There are other facilities where it's a public facility because it's located in a public stormwater easement, but it's on private property. So in those cases, when it's on private property, a lot of times the reason why it was done that way is because the private property HOA or condo association, they want more control over what that space looks like. So they are responsible for vegetation management in those cases. So I'll just open it up for questions or discussion on that.
Claudia, this is an incredible document. Oh, guess what? I think that I've got my audio fixed. Maybe not.
I think
Okay.
you
Hear
need to
me?
mute your computer because there's an echo if you have your computer unmuted while you're.
Oh,
I
I
think
thought I had
Fact
it muted. I
TV
was
is
trying to
taking
fix
care of
the
it.
audio, but
Oh,
I thought I succeeded, but apparently not. I think this document was an incredible amount of work, and it's extremely helpful. One suggestion that I have as I was going through this, because I don't know where a lot of these places are, is maybe just include a map. If you look at the appendix, it's a little bit more helpful because you've got pieces of maps, parts of maps in there, but I think a map showing where, I can't believe Fitchburg has this many things in the city, but I think a map showing where everything is located would be helpful. And I don't know if this falls into this report or not, but last year when we did the stormwater cleanup, my husband and I cleaned up on the golf course over by Fish Hatchery Road, where that stream kind of goes under Fish Hatchery Road to the Fish Hatchery. Anyway, the stream in the golf course leading up to the underpass area, the beds seem to be pretty eroded. So is that something that would be included in a report like this, that needs to be attended to, or is that something different?
So no, this is specifically for our facilities, not for these streams and natural waterways that go through the city. I know we do have a CIP for repairing the Nine Springs banks, and any sort of dredging within the stream would be done as part of the same project. I'm not sure what date that's for, but I know that's a little far in the future for that one.
Okay, then my other question, and this is very minor and this is just for my general knowledge, not part of this report, but when you have those grates that are covering outlets or inlets and they get covered by debris, whether it's branches or reeds or something, how do you know when that gets covered and needs to be cleaned out?
So sometimes if something gets clogged and it is impacting a private residence or a road or something like that, we might get a call. That's more common with the storm sewer infrastructure. So if an inlet gets clogged and it's at a low point, we'll hear about it and we'll be out there fixing that. For the ponds, that's something that this year we're implementing an annual pond inspection. That's something that our intern is going to do. And so those types of things would be, we have been having them look at outfalls as part of the illicit discharge inspection. And so if there is vegetation that's blocking the area, that would be caught at that time, and then a work order would be put in for our staff to go in and clear that area. But for the other structures, the pond outlet devices, that's something that we would catch as part of an annual pond inspection. So that's actually starting this year.
One suggestion based on what you just said, since this document, sort of the Bible, if you will, going forward for anybody in your position and actually in public works, maybe you should include in there that the stormwaters are inspected annually by interns or by staff or however you want to phrase it, but maybe you just want to have that documented so going forward that process continues.
And I think that was actually something that I was anticipating last year when we put together the stormwater utility maintenance plan.
Okay.
So that talks more broadly about infrastructure maintenance versus and that one did have a chapter on vegetation management, but it was very, very brief. And it said that a site-specific vegetation management plan would be coming out at a later date. So this is really just the vegetation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is Ron, Claudia. I mean, that was one of the same thing I had thought when I reviewed this, that it'd be great to have a map of all these facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Also on page 70 of 175, facility Oakmeadows. I don't think that picture is of Oakmeadows, unless I'm mistaken. Oakmeadows is the one right at Lacy and Fish Hatchery, right?
70 of 175. Oakmeadows.
Because Oakmeadows is a big pond.
Yeah.
And there, I don't know, is there a difference? Because it shows a structure in this photograph, and I don't know of any structure there.
So I believe this is actually a small infiltration area. Maybe I can pull it up. It also has the name Oakmeadows, which is confusing. The other one is Oakmeadow Pond. And this one should say Oakmeadow Infiltration Area. It's kind of near the pond. Let me see if I can pull up a map.
Because we have Oak Meadows Park Rain Garden, and we just have Oak Meadows.
Right, so that's actually one. Let me share my screen. So
Yeah.
this is Oak Meadows pond, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
The photo that you're looking at is Oakmeadow Infiltration Basin, which is actually located right here. We had that listed as a public facility in our GIS, but when we looked, and that's why Field and Stream included it in their report, because we gave them a list of our facilities to take a look at in a map. So they went to it and took a look at it. But when we looked at it further, we found that it's actually a private facility. It's located on private property and there's no public easement that we're aware of. So you'll notice that that particular facility was not included in the facility scorecards. And that's why, and I guess that's something I was kind of thinking the facility scorecards was what people would be looking at, but you kind of bring up a good point. Maybe we should clean that up to make sure there aren't any extraneous facilities in
So
in
the
the Field and
information,
Stream inventory.
the information there that's for Oak Meadows, where it says native vegetation 80%, invasive 20, that's for that private infiltration basin?
Right, yeah. So if you go to page 69 of 175, oh wait,
No, that's Oak Bank Pond.
yeah. So I'll have to ask, it looks like maybe we just didn't get this from them. That's a good. Oh no, it is later, sorry. It's under W because we had it in our system as Wibba-Oakmeadow Pond. That's a historical name for that pond. Now everyone calls it Oakmeadow, but when it was originally built, it was Wibba. I don't even know what that stands for, but
102, okay,
yeah.
What page is that?
102. That's at 175.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So Claudia, you were hoping that we would focus more on the scoring of these? I didn't realize that.
Right, the other one is the inventory that shows what Field and Stream saw while they were out there,
Okay.
and their observations and their recommendations. And then the scorecard kind of takes that information as one of the factors that were considered in order to give each facility a score, which put it into the ranking system. I think maybe a topic not for today just because of time issues, but maybe we can bring this up at the next meeting. One thing that's kind of come up a lot more frequently is trees around stormwater facilities. And so I'm thinking there should probably be a chapter in here about trees specifically. But I'm going to put that down as a topic for another date. And then I'll plan on updating this report kind of after we've had some discussion on that.
Just as a suggestion going forward, when you include a document like this, if you could just give us some tips on what specifically, if there's something specific that you would like feedback on or like us to pay attention to, that would be helpful.
Sure.
I thought you wanted us to memorize this, so I've been working on that.
Flashcards, yes.
Yeah.
I have one small comment, Claudia. Page 95 of the packet, it's page 10 of the section.
Mm-hmm.
There's a list of the 6 facilities in this section. And then if you go into the table, only 5 of them are included in the table. It's missing the Seminole
Okay.
Village Pond expansion.
Yeah, I will take that as a follow-up. I'll figure out why there's that discrepancy and fix it. Thanks.
Great. And just as a general concept, I think the document's pretty extraordinary, and it's really fascinating to see an overview like this of the facilities and see them ranked in terms of priorities. I think it's a great way to understand the stormwater infrastructure in our city, and obviously also a way to prioritize what gets done. So fantastic work. I look forward to seeing. I'm very impressed with it, and I think it's a really, really well done document.
I totally agree. The pictures really help. It's a little bit easier to understand what you're discussing when we can drive by them and see exactly what we learned today. So good job, really good job.
Nice work, Claudia. And Hannah and everybody else that contributed to it. I think it's a really, we're very fortunate to have a document like this to help us prioritize these things. So thank you very much.
Okay, so is there anything specific we have to do with this, or we'll just wait for the final?
Right, so I was just bringing it here to see if there was any feedback, anything that folks didn't like or wanted to see incorporated. Definitely we'll take Gabriella's comment about table 5.1 not quite matching the other list. And I was going to just get RCC feedback and then send this through council, but I do want to bring it back for at least one more meeting to talk about trees specifically before I send it through council. So I think we'll see this on a future agenda item.
Okay.
All right.
And could you add a map?
Yes, yes,
Okay, thanks.
definitely.
And we are 13 minutes behind now, so we'll have to pick up the pace a little bit on some of the upcoming agenda items.
Okay. Any more discussion on Claudia's great report?
Good job.
Okay, moving on to 4J meeting minutes. Phil?
Sure, I can try to make this one pretty quick. Fitting to have this discussion when I didn't get the meetings for the last, the March RCC meeting into the packet, but this was a discussion I've kind of been having with Claudia and Nate Umanowski in over previous meetings, just kind of trying to get a sense for how meeting minutes should be handled. I had a discussion with the city clerk, Tracy Oldenburg, on this topic a month or two ago, just to kind of talk about essentially what I've been doing is following kind of established precedent by looking at all of the archived meeting minutes from previous sustainability specialists from previous RCC meetings, and sort of following that level of detail, as well as submitting draft minutes to the entire RCC for feedback, within a week or two following a meeting. After speaking with Tracy, it sounds like standard practice for other Fitchburg boards and commissions or committees is to record kind of higher level notes on topics of conversation, but not necessarily details of those conversations, as well as sharing those draft minutes with the chair following a meeting. And then the board members, the first time they would see those draft minutes would be when the next meeting's agenda packet is published. So any discussion about adjustments to that set of draft minutes would occur at the following meeting. I didn't want to make a change that significant just because that's not something that the RCC is familiar with, without kind of having a discussion here and seeing sort of what people are comfortable with. And I'm looking some of the meetings that I've gone into greater detail and then taken requests for kind of adjustments and edits following that meeting. I'll spend several hours working on meetings, not just during an RCC meeting, but then during the several work days following. And I was looking for a way to condense that. So certainly one is just doing higher level detail, but I just kind of wanted to open that discussion and see what the expectation is for commissioners and what you would all be comfortable with and kind of expect to see going forward.
Well, I think the meeting minutes that you put together are really great. I mean, they're pretty detailed, more so than any other minutes I've ever seen. So, but how much of your time does this take to put together these meeting minutes?
So early on, it took a lot more because we were discussing things that, as a newcomer to the city, there's a lot of stuff I wasn't very familiar with and just struggled to keep up with conversations. But generally, following a meeting, when I'm adding those extra levels of detail, especially for topics that that become more extensive, or if it's topics that I'm engaged more in the conversation and I can't speak and take notes at the same time, I may go back and watch an entire meeting again and do a lot of pause and start to catch anything I've missed. So just taking that initial round of notes might take me 2 or 3 hours beyond the original meeting, just to make sure that I'm getting every detail possible and really, you know, kind of honoring the thread of the conversation that happened. Yeah, so for example, you know, this evening so far, basically I've made notes, you know, there was a motion and seconding for approval of this resolution. It was approved by voice vote. What I would have done in the past is we had a motion and a second for this resolution, and then I might have 2 to 5 sentences talking about the overall gist of that conversation. I don't know, especially because all of the videos are archived and available for review if you have any uncertainty about what happened. I don't know if the value add in providing that much detail is great enough to, you know, to put 3 hours in the following days into it, or if it makes sense to keep it a little bit more condensed.
So if I can give my opinion, your notes are extraordinarily detailed. The only other committee I think that even comes close to it is personnel. But most of them, like you said, are just really kind of recordings of how the votes went and who might have come to speak to give testimony. I'm not sure that this is the best. I don't think this is the best use of your time, just given the fact that these meetings are so long. You know, if this was an hour-long meeting, that would be an easier ask. But if you're reviewing a 3-hour-long meeting slowly, that's a whole day. I feel like you have a lot of other things to do with the city. And that being said, like, I appreciate your minutes, but at the same time, I'm not sure that record is being used in a broad enough way to justify that amount of time. So, and especially because we have such good accessibility for watching the meetings. And I've been known to share, you know, time-stamped YouTube links for specific discussions, which is what I do when I want someone to know about it. I will summarize it in a sentence and I'll send out the YouTube link. So if you think that this is taking up too much of your time, which it sounds like it is, I would be in support of you simplifying the minutes down.
And yeah, and to be clear, it definitely would not turn into, you know, the RCC does, I think, maybe the ratio of sort of discussion topics to resolution items is a little bit different for RCC than for some other committees. So when there are more resolutions to vote on, that's much more succinct notes. I certainly wouldn't be eliminating any detail at all from the minutes, but, you know, for something like the discussion of the vegetation management plan, you might get kind of 2 sentences covering it rather than my trying to put in 1 or 2 paragraphs that encapsulate everything that was discussed. I didn't think this would necessarily be something controversial to make a change like that, but I also didn't want to just do that without, you know, just because the RCC is definitely familiar with more detail. I did get one piece of feedback from one of the commissioners after the February meeting. Phil, this looks great. You're spending too much time on this.
Yeah.
Can I offer a little bit of history?
Please.
I'm not unsympathetic to what you're going through. When I joined RCC, I don't want to give either you or Claudia any ideas, but the staff refused to take minutes, and so the commissioners had to take minutes. At that time, we didn't have an alder assigned to our committee, and so we were kind of left no recourse. So we've been, some of us, I think I'm the only one that was that's still on back then, but we've been through what you're going through, Phil, and we didn't have the option of looking at a video after the fact because they weren't videotaped. And so, you know, we've gone through that, and I understand very well trying to take minutes and participate in the discussion. And, you know, it's like your brain can only do so many things at one time. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think that I do appreciate some detail in minutes, but I think that the detail that you're providing is maybe not necessary. It could be reduced a little bit. I don't want to go to I've seen some minutes where you have no idea what was discussed at the meeting at all. I mean, the minutes look pretty much like just the agenda, and you have no idea what happened. And I think minutes are a good reference if we have to go back and look at something. For example, our Duns Marsh discussion, I would like to see some of that in the minutes, not verbatim, but just the fact that the commission would like to see the Duns Marsh moved up and have some discussion about that. And that's kind of it.
Absolutely.
And then as far as circulating it to commissioners, when we did not circulate the draft to commissioners, we spent too much time in meetings with revisions, and it used to plus there were some things when we had interns taking minutes that were just wrong. And the draft minutes were getting posted on the website and they had incorrect information on, and we wanted to avoid that. So what we did, and it was kind of left up to every commission to decide what they wanted to do. And back at that time, the mayor wanted the minutes posted within a week, the draft minutes. So what we did was circulate the draft to members and get their feedback from those who wanted to give feedback and corrections, and then post the minutes and meet the 1 week deadline. I still think that it saves a lot of time. Like I said, I don't think we need the detail, but I don't want to go the other extreme either. But I do think circulating it to everybody saves time. I don't know how many people give you feedback, but just think about how much time that would be spent during a meeting. So
Sure.
I would like to still see it circulated to commissioners. And I think, I didn't see minutes from the last meeting. I don't know if I just missed that or if my memory is wrong, but I know sometimes when I see it, I try to eliminate some of the detail, and I'd be happy to continue doing that so you can get an idea of what I think we should be seeing in terms of detail, if that would be helpful.
Possibly. What I did after February that did end up, it didn't necessarily change anything in terms of the taking the minutes. It saves time in terms of the revisions. Was instead of sending out a Word document, get back changes in a Word document and kind of have to go through, 2 different iterations of track changes and version control. I kind of just sent out a PDF and asked for an email with comments back, and that I felt worked a lot better just in terms of making sure that the one edited copy was something that I had, and then just kind of could incorporate recommended changes on my side. And that seemed, at least for February's minutes, that seemed like a pretty good compromise between the two. So still getting those draft minutes out to commissioners after the meeting, but then kind of being able to kind of sort of manage those edits a little bit more on my end.
Did you send out March minutes?
I may not have sent out March. I think that one I knew there wasn't going to be an April meeting, so I felt a little less rushed to send those minutes out the day after, because a couple things popped up, and then of course it popped off my to-do list. So I've got them, but yeah, I didn't get them sent out in that first week, and so still need to get that done.
Okay.
Yeah, I think all good feedback from everyone. Seems to be my theme tonight. But I think, the important things, I think for me as a commissioner, from just kind of our perspective, looking at those minutes, and then also for Ron as a new chair, I think that, high level, bulleted, kind of concise statements about what we discussed about, key items, and then really kind of focusing in on capturing those action items. And then, since we're really an action-based commission, I think, getting back to being responsible as commissioners to get our action items done if we do have things that are assigned to us. And then, that's something also that, the commissioner can kind of follow up, with some of those. I remember that was something that I always tried to do, kind of in between meetings, was try to follow up on some of the action items that we had assigned out and just make sure that we're getting the actions done that we want to get done, because, kind of going back to, we want to get stuff done in our community. And I think we all take a lot of pride in that. And I think, if you're capturing those action items really well, those are the key things that I'm going to go back to as a commissioner in those meeting minutes.
Yeah. And that's definitely a point I had not considered, getting those action items. Yeah. It certainly increases the value of sending out the draft minutes sooner than later.
So I guess I'd like to make a suggestion that Phil, and
Sure.
the rest of the commissioners, that I work with Phil on the March meeting minutes. And once he gets them to me, and see if we can fine tune them to make them be a little more, at a higher level, and then run it by everybody at the next meeting and see what they think of that version of the minutes, if that's okay.
Well, Ron, the March meeting happened like 2 months ago. So maybe we could start with, maybe Phil could still circulate the March meetings, but maybe you could work with him on the May meeting when it's fresh in our
Okay.
mind.
Yeah, okay.
I have
Sounds great.
one more.
Great. Are we ready to move on to the next agenda item?
I have one small comment, something that might be useful for minutes, and I actually should bring this up to Tracy, but it might be nice to have timestamps on items to like when we started the discussion, because that's honestly what I would find most useful about meetings I don't attend, because I don't know when the conversation started. So if I want to watch it, I have to just like go through the meeting like a million times to find the right timestamp. So it's something I'll bring up to Tracy as potentially a helpful, honestly, that would be the most useful for me personally, because I do revisit meetings regularly. And if I knew what time a discussion started, that's how I would figure it out. So.
And that's actually something Claudia does always include timestamps in for when items are expected to begin. I tend to delete them before I send the draft minutes out. I don't think to put those new timestamps in, and that would just, I guess that would be a practice I could get into, noting during the meeting when I'm taking minutes, kind of, all right, we've started this next discussion, make sure I document what time that is. I think would be probably the most efficient way to do that.
I think that would be, if it's possible, that would be great.
I'm not sure that you need to do that, Phil. I know when the city first started videoing meetings, they had a company do the timestamps, and apparently that was too expensive. So I'm not sure what the process is now, but I don't think we need to add that to you taking minutes. I think it's just too much. I don't think you need to keep track of anything more than you're already keeping track of.
I would tend to agree with Diane on that, just because I know going back through videos, it takes me a long time to figure out like the timestamp, because every now and then I will send a link to someone, and kind of similar to what you said, Gabriella, I'll tell them the timestamp to go to for the topic that they're interested in. And it does take time to locate those timestamps. So I would say, Phil, it's no small effort, but it is very helpful that fact TV at the bottom, they put what agenda item you're on. So if you look at the agenda, that helps.
Yeah.
I guess when I said
the minutes show the approximate time. So, I think that at least for our meeting, not all meetings do that, but for ours, I think we're okay with it.
I guess I wasn't talking about the timestamp from the video. I was just talking about like, I don't know when we started this precisely, but it's like we started this at 7:55 p.m.
Right.
That would be based on when the meeting started, but it's just like a reference so that if I was looking at the minutes, I can be like, oh, we started 5 minutes late and we started the discussion an hour and a half in. And you know what I mean? Like, so it wouldn't be you wouldn't have to go back to the video, but it would just like write a note down what actual time the discussion item started. That would be my suggestion, just to clarify.
And yeah, that'll be something I still think about and maybe checking with Tracy on. I think because the time in the video doesn't match the clock, it's still requiring somebody to do kind of that calculation in their head, which I guess everyone has a different level of comfort with kind of that. But yeah, I'll certainly keep it under advisement and think about if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you just recorded the time when we started a topic, when the actual time when we started a topic, then, I think you could kind of get it pretty darn close. And
and as long as I make sure to keep it a standard practice so that it's consistent throughout the course of the meeting minutes. Yeah.
I mean, that might take a little while to get in the flow of doing that, but
sure.
And again, don't want to add, we came here to try to resolve the issue of spending too much time. But if that practice is, then that could be a nice addition,
sure.
but save a lot of people time.
Yep. If I remember to do that during the meeting, it doesn't add any extra time because I'm already documenting. So it's 4 extra keystrokes and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're 21 minutes over now, so we're not speeding up our pace. So I'm hopeful with some of these upcoming topics, we can pick it up a little bit.
Oh, okay, because the next item is the street sweeper. Oh, wait.
No,
No, the
no
2020
operating
operating
budget.
budget request. Yeah, sorry. Item 4K, Claudia.
I'm going to share my screen with our operating budget request worksheet here. This includes previous years and what we've asked for in previous years, just as a reference. What I was going to propose is keep everything the same as last year. $150 for speakers and films, $150 for food, for potential outreach events. Hopefully by next year, we'll be able to have in-person events again. And then $300 for supplies. In the past, it has been recycling supplies. One thing that kind of came up more recently is by putting this in the recycling budget and having this for recycling supplies specifically, that does kind of limit our ability to use this money on other potential items, such as, for example, tree tags came up as a potential thing we might want to spend this RCC money on. And really the way it's in the budget, it can't be spent on that. So a thing that Phil and I had discussed was potentially taking this, because currently the way it shows up, this is in the solid waste budget, and it really is in there for recycling supplies. One thing we talked about was moving this from the solid waste budget to the sustainability fund. And it would still be the same amount and it would still be described similarly, but instead of recycling supplies, we would change that to say just supplies, I guess. And then we could use it on a broader range of things, anything that's sustainability related, including recycling, but potentially other things as well. So that was one recommendation that I don't see why anyone would oppose that. Keeping the battery recycling so we can continue to supplement battery recycling for our annual events that we have. One discussion topic that I was hoping we could talk about a little bit today is potentially reducing our waterway cleanup supplies and appreciation gifts. I know in the past, appreciation gifts have been something that we have provided to volunteers who have come out to the waterway cleanup. I guess I've struggled with that the last few years just because I don't want to hand out something that people are potentially not going to use, and that's just going to turn into trash. So that's something that I struggle with. For example, handing out a T-shirt that maybe won't get used, or handing out a reusable bag, and probably the people who are coming to these events already have reusable bags. This last event, I did include some pens in there, just Fitchburg pens, because I figure everyone can use an extra pen, and I feel like that would actually get used. But that was kind of an underwhelming gift, I thought. So I'm not sure how folks feel about continuing with the appreciation gifts. I guess the other thing is we're also getting much higher turnouts, and maybe this was a special year with COVID and people didn't have a lot going on. We did have a lot of people show up this year. So if we did want to get a gift, and even if it's a $5 gift, like a mug or something, that's getting pretty expensive for the turnout that we're getting. So I'm not sure. I feel like we should either ask for more and figure out what gift we want, or maybe not do the gift.
If I could just talk really quickly, I'm all for not giving out a gift. I feel like people come out because they want to come out and help and be part of the process and the community to, help clean up. And I totally agree. It's like when you start thinking about gifts, there's not only the cost to them, but are they really going to use them? Do they end up just sitting in, somebody's house or, thrown away potentially? So I'm somebody, I would be fine if we didn't give out a gift. I mean, one thing we could think about is, I know that you always supply gloves. And I don't know if, sometimes I think, I don't know if people have given the gloves back to be reused again. Some years we've said, just keep the gloves. But that might be something, that we just say is, here are, the cleanup gloves and you can keep them, and maybe they'll go and pick up some more trash. So just a thought.
Kim, I actually really like that idea. One thing that I noticed this year when I was putting together the boxes of supplies is some of those gloves are in really rough shape. So I think some of them I'm going to go through this year and just throw some of those out. Some of them, the rubber has really gotten really, really hard. And it kind of goes against my grain when, they're really only being used once a year. And how long are they lasting? 6 years. So this is a 6-time use item potentially. So I love the idea of giving that as the gift if folks want to take that home, and then get some more use out of those items.
I actually, I'm not sure which sites were having people return the gloves, but for the last several years that I was leading a cleanup, we were telling people they could keep the gloves. That was, part of the thank you, that they could just keep the gloves. And although I miss the t-shirt, I'm one of the people that actually wears them. But the problem with that is, what sizes do you get in which groups? And then we don't have enough if they're in this size, and, then we end up having to deliver later. And that was kind of a hassle. But I do think that do you really want the gloves back? I don't think so. I think that should be, we'll provide the gloves that have that waterproof coating on. And some of them, at least depending on the time of the year, some of them are thermal, which is even better. So let's just give people the gloves. I don't even know if the ones you're getting back have been washed. So let's buy enough gloves for everybody. You still have the problem of sizes, but not quite so many, and not so many problems. And we'll just call that, we'll provide the gloves and you get to keep them.
Yeah. The only other thing I could think of is maybe we gave everybody the gloves after they were done with them, but maybe donuts at the very beginning or something like that. Because we had everybody gathered together, and maybe like a dozen donuts or something available, or 24 donuts for people who are there if there's more people. So
yeah, and we do have that food budget. So this year, especially since we don't have any in-person meetings, that would have been nice. I think that does put a little bit more responsibility on the waterway cleanup leader to go out and buy donuts and provide me with a receipt. And then we can send that.
I bought potato chips, the whole thing of different potato chips for people, individual bags. So I went out to spend my own money for that. So it's
I bought donuts and I just spent my own money.
Yeah.
So not a big deal, really.
Yeah.
Well, at our cleanups, at the ones that I've led, people come, they don't all come at the same time. And based on the email that I received from the person who led the one over in my area, people did not come at the same time. So personally, I'd rather get started, and as a leader or as a participant, I'd rather get started and get the cleanup done and be on my way with the rest of the day. I'd rather not stop. I wouldn't eat a donut anyway, but I'd rather not get my hands full of that and then stick them in a glove. At one point, several years ago, the city employee bought like subs and soft drinks for after the cleanup, but everybody disperses at a different time and we're at different locations. Yeah. And so I don't think that really works either. I did want to comment, I don't think that we should be giving the leader a different gift than the other people. Most of the leaders are RCC members, and I think that the appearance of that, I don't like that. Okay. It's a nice idea, but I don't think that they should be doing that. Personally, I wouldn't want the donuts, but I do like the gloves idea.
Well, just to go back to the donut thing, it's at the very beginning when we had our group together, we spent about 5 to 10 minutes on safety features, talking about safety about at the site, what you may encounter, what to be careful of, sharp instruments, needles, and thick glass, and went over a safety routine. So that's a time you could have people together and share a donut or something like that while they're listening to you, give your spiel. So.
And another thing we could do is we could, you know, leave it up to the cleanup leader. If that's something you want to do, then you could do that and submit a receipt. And if it's something that you don't feel will work for you, or, you know, maybe you don't want donuts, or don't have time to go in the morning that day, that's perfectly fine too. I think that's another way of doing it. Some will have donuts and some won't, and we won't advertise it. So.
Just want to mention, Claudia, two things on the operating worksheet, operating budget worksheet. 2019 doesn't appear to be there. And I thought that 2019 would show us what we spent on battery recycling. So because last year, you know, it was kind of we didn't have battery recycling, and I thought that it would give us an idea of what we actually spent. The other thing is that food allowance, which is $150. We needed that for our events that we were having, which we didn't have last year, but like our annual event or when we buy pizza or something, because pizza is not always provided by, Ian's has been very good about providing pizza, but they're not going to provide it 4 times a year. So I'm not sure if we're going to start adding cleanup donuts or bagels or whatever, maybe we need to bump that amount up a little bit.
Maybe bump that up to 200.
Yeah.
Okay. And then these would all be under, just to clarify, Claudia, these would be under like a sustainability and not the recycling
Right.
going forward.
Right.
Okay. That's where I thought they were as of now.
Oh.
Thanks for clarifying that and making the fix for next year. I think we'll get through with our $45 worth of tree labels for this year.
Actually, I think the whole community outreach budget should be under sustainability. Is that what you're suggesting, Claudia? Because it's not always, I mean, we've struggled with this in the past. It's not always stormwater related or recycling related. It could be, you know, like this year it's trees.
Yeah.
Sure. So my recommendation was the green events. So the speakers, the food, and the supplies, all of that moved to sustainability. The waterway cleanup stuff, I mean, we do have a waterway cleanup every year, and it is stormwater related. So I think that could stay in stormwater.
I was just asking about the outreach category.
Sorry, what was that?
I was
just
the
community outreach category.
Community outreach category.
Oh, right. Yeah. So that was the recommendation. Yes, for that entire category to move to sustainability.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to move on here now. So get a little further behind.
Okay. So I'll just make a note to bump up the $150 to $150 to $200 for the food, and then maybe I'll keep the budget at $400 for the supplies, just because I haven't been buying new gloves, and I'm not sure offhand how much new gloves cost. So I'll just keep it at $400 for now, and then we'll see how next year goes, and maybe we'll reduce that the year after.
Sounds good. I think, you know, in mind, you know, just with Swan Creek having typically a lot of volunteers, I would say that probably half of them will probably bring their own gloves anyway. But, you know, if we have 30 volunteers, that could be like 15 sets of gloves that would be needed in Swan Creek, you know, each year. So just to give a point of reference with that, we will need more bags in future years because we've been pretty short. But we were also very surprised by the turnout.
That's great.
Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Are we done with item K then? Okay, so let's move on to item 4I, street sweeper wrap artwork. So Claudia, you're looking for some feedback on that? I thought it looked great.
Very cute. Nice job.
Yeah.
So I will go ahead and share my screen showing that artwork. So this was the winner. I actually haven't told the person that they've won yet, but I will make sure I do that this week. Yeah, So this is
And
what
what
it
will
looks
they
like.
win?
How many people put in the artwork?
So we didn't get that many, Shelley. So I was very pleased that we got really good submissions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool. It has City Hall campus in the background, so it's very Fitchburg centric. The artwork looks great. On this page, the next page here, you can kind of see a mock-up of what it might look like on the street sweeper. I thought that looked really cool. Yeah, so did anyone have comments on, the slogan or I guess anything that we might bring back before just going ahead and purchasing this? If
I think
when?
I think it looks great. I can't remember what the winning design, what are we offering them?
It was just a contest. There was no prize. The prize is your artwork is on our street sweeper and you have bragging rights.
Yeah.
No, I think maybe we should just surprise them, especially considering we haven't spent money on anything because we haven't had anything, but maybe we could buy them a gift certificate to like Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen's been very supportive of Fitchburg's, or at least RCC's events, and they're very green-minded, and I don't have any problem supporting that business. So maybe we could just buy a gift certificate and send a note of appreciation. This is a token of our appreciation for your great design, and we look forward to seeing it on the sweeper.
Yeah. I mean, can we have that person commission the new street sweeper? Not like it breaking a champagne bottle on a but something, something similar or something like that, and they get their picture.
In the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Claudia, you could also put it on the social media and website as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once we actually get the street sweeper and it has the wrap, I think it would be really great to have a photo op with this kid next to
Yeah.
the sweeper with his artwork. I think that would be really cool. Maybe something we can put in the star, and certainly on social media as well.
Do you know how old this person is?
So it was Eagle School, which is that an elementary or middle school? I'm not sure.
It's a combination. It's like, I want to say kindergarten or 1st through 8th.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm not sure. I don't know if that was part of the submission form on how old the applicant or the contestant was. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I think it looks great on the sweeper. Look at that.
Diana, and I do like your idea of giving a gift certificate as a prize, especially since we're not using our food budget this year. Did anyone have any other ideas besides Dairy Queen, or I could just go ahead and do Dairy Queen?
I think Dairy Queen is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Dairy Queen.
Can we make a copy of this and give it to them and say, this is what it's going to look like?
Yeah, I could do that. Sure.
Well, maybe when we get the street sweeper with the wrap, it would be nice to have the mayor and this person, I don't know if it's a male or female, standing by the street sweeper, and that could be the publicity picture.
Yeah, do you think we should do some sort of plaque or an award? Or...
I don't know. My plaques are somewhere in a drawer or box
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, having your artwork on a street sweeper is pretty powerful. So
Yeah, I think a photo next to it is something that would be great.
Yeah,
with the mayor. Yeah.
With the mayor.
Yeah,
and then give them a copy of the picture.
Yeah. Or get it in the paper, and then parents can frame it. Kids can tease them.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Claudia, for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice job.
Okay, let's move on to item 4N, plan for June stormwater median. Claudia, that's you.
Yeah, so just a little bit of history. As we know, we increased the number of RCC meetings by 2. And so the idea was for one of those meetings to be focused on stormwater and then the other one to be focused on sustainability. One of the benefits of that is just reducing the staff workload associated with 2 more meetings. So I will be the staff person coming to the stormwater meeting, and then Phil would be the staff person coming to the new sustainability meeting. So, so for the June stormwater meeting, just kind of wanted to brainstorm what RCC was hoping to get out of that meeting. I did have some ideas. One idea that I had a couple of years ago, I did give a presentation to UW, their environmental, it was a student group, basically just going over the stormwater utility and the stormwater utilities function and basic design concepts associated with various types of stormwater facilities. I can't remember how, and then at the end of that, I gave a little bit of information about what you can do as a resident to help with the process as well. So the smaller things you can do in your own yard, such as composting or rain gardens or rain barrels, that kind of thing. I thought, you know, and I'm not sure what everyone's understanding is. I think folks here, for the most part, have a pretty good understanding of the stormwater utility and how the different facilities function. But that was an idea that I had. Another topic, which will be a carryover from this meeting, is discussion on trees in stormwater facilities. So just going over that in some detail, I think would be good. In the past, it's not really something we have tried to incorporate as much, since it does make mowing more difficult. And there are some areas where we wouldn't want trees, just from a stability perspective. So really steep slopes, we might not want trees, or if it's a dam embankment, you wouldn't want trees because there's a structural concern. But there are certainly areas that are on stormwater lots that potentially could have trees. So anyway, that's up for discussion. I think another topic that I think would be good to maybe do a deep dive is our assessment policy associated with stormwater. Right now, our assessment policy, we have it, it's written, and it's not really something that we've been following because council, you know, has just decided to do something different from our official policy for various projects. So I think it would be good to kind of revisit that, maybe put an update to our policy through council, and then, you know, I think once there's more current buy-in, maybe that's something we can just stick to. So those are the topics I had, and if there are any other suggestions, definitely open to that as well.
Claudia, in the past, and this, I think this even predates Bill. We had a session where, and I'm looking for other people's input on this because I've already been through this, but we've had a session where you explained terminology, stormwater terminology, because some things that you say or use, we may not necessarily understand. But I like your idea. I would prefer a little bit more high level. I don't think we need to discuss the rainwater and, you know, things that individuals can do. We've sort of, Nate kind of covered that in one of his articles last year, and I think that I hope that we all have an idea of that. But maybe we could go through that map that you will be including in the maintenance plan that you just put together. And maybe we could go through some of those rankings, because if you want to dive down into that, that might take some time. I'm assuming, I mean, this won't be the only thing that we cover in the meeting, but this will be the main topic. But I like your idea of trees. If people have questions on terminology, you could do that. And then I really like, if we have an assessment that council is deviating from, we need to get back in sync. So I think that might be worthwhile for a discussion. No other thoughts?
I like what you've laid out here, Claudia, a lot. I think it would be really cool to just have kind of a high level overview of the stormwater utility, because I don't think people have a good sense of what that looks like. And I think people maybe have heard about it a little bit more now that they've heard that the increase is happening. So maybe it's a good time to explain what that is and how it works. Also, I personally think it's super interesting, and I think there are a lot of people in the city that would be interested to learn more. I do think it could be worthwhile to have information, like collating citizen action opportunities, like we do a waterway cleanup, we do leaf-free streets in the fall, we do, you can put a rain garden in and get a discount in your stormwater utility. Like there's certain things related to, and then we do those outreach events. I think we did a rain garden workshop a few years back and things like that kind of can explain to people how they can connect to the stormwater utility in an active way. I don't know what that looks like. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a long thing, but maybe that's just a slide in the presentation about how you can get involved, which you kind of mentioned. But I do think it's nice to reinforce that.
Is the purpose of this for members to spend a little bit more time learning about stormwater, or is this for the public?
I personally think it's for the public, but maybe Claudia has.
I think it's a good opportunity for both. I think, Diane, that you brought up a good point that some of the things that people can do at their own homes is something that maybe we've discussed a lot in this forum and other forums. So kind of a blend between what you and Gabrielle is saying. So maybe that presentation that I gave, one focus is what the stormwater utility does, kind of like on a higher level, and terminology related to different types of facilities we have and how they're designed, that kind of thing. At a high level, how they're designed. Obviously, we're not going to be doing calculations here, but I think maybe that's something that we can talk about. But in terms of what you can do at your own home and how a rain garden works and that kind of thing, maybe we can go ahead and skip that for this topic. But yeah, I mean, I think this is an opportunity for RCC commissioners to learn more, and certainly, the public that's viewing as well.
What kind of a time frame do you think you'll have? Like maybe, are we talking about an hour discussion, or how much of the meeting do you think we'll be able to spend on this? I realize you haven't put the agenda together and you and Ron have to work on that, but I mean, you kind of need to know that so that you can plan this.
Right, yeah, and I think it will just depend on, how many resolutions come to RCC and how many other topics we consider to be pressing that need to go onto that agenda. But I mean, I can fill as much time as we need with these topics.
Good.
Yeah, it seems like it'll land somewhere between an hour and hour and a half, depending on what other topics, we have in the hopper. But, I think
Sure.
The opportunity for us to kind of look at what you're doing and kind of big picture strategic things. What can we improve as a community? How can we make, stormwater, better, stormwater management across the community better? What can we do as a commission? Just kind of really kind of take a step back and kind of, normally we're in the trenches all the time with, anything, and, just kind of taking a step back and maybe coming up with, challenging, commissioners and others, from the general public to come forward with some ideas, but also the opportunity to learn too. So, I guess I'd like to capture both of those and really kind of think, big picture, is there something, really innovative that we can do as a community? Is there something like that? Maybe some people can bring some ideas to the table like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about the assessment policy, how we go through all that process. I think I really need to know more about that. Okay, we're gonna move forward here. We only have 25 minutes left, so
Yep.
a lot to cover. All right, next item. Thank you, Claudia. Next item is Lacy Road discussion. And, you know, we have 10 minutes for that. To me, that seems like this is something that could take a long time based upon all the comments that were received during the planning process. So I'll leave it up to you, Claudia, how you're going to guide this for the next 10 minutes or to get it done. So
Yeah, and this actually isn't my project. So earlier today, I was talking to
Bill's.
Bill to get a recap, and he offered to come. So thank you,
Okay.
Bill, for coming. And I'll hand
Thanks,
it
Bill.
over to you to give that overview.
All right. Is this an action item? No?
No, it's not an
No.
action item. It's just
It's just an information
informative.
item. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a little bit over on time. All the Lacy Road information is on the website. I'm done.
Can I just, I asked for this to be on the agenda, and the reason I asked, this was discussed at the last council meeting, and there were a lot of people, I mean, this sort of flew under my radar. I didn't realize that these discussions had been going on, but there was a lot of concern about the environmental aspects of Lacy Road, and I thought, well, shoot, I think RCC needs to weigh in on this. And it might be, I mean, based on everything that was included in the packet, we might be a day late. But the concerns that I've seen and heard expressed have to do with tree preservation and impervious surfaces. And so I thought if we could just briefly, I don't think there's any way we can do justice to this topic in 10 minutes. But I will say, I'm going to add my 2 cents worth, and hopefully everybody has looked at the packet and knows what the situation is. But I don't think, I am also a bicyclist, but I don't think we need to have roads be the be all end all for every kind of bicyclist there is. I think we're going from one extreme to another. That section of Lacy Road right now is pretty poor for biking, but we don't need to go to the other extreme. I've biked in Michigan along county highways, and they have a multi-use path on one side of the road only, and that works just fine. And first of all, because it's asphalt, it doesn't involve cutting down as many trees because it doesn't have to, I don't know what the terminology is, but the depth doesn't have to be as deep. And when I was there, the path was pretty old, and still with all the frost and upheavals from winter, it was still in great shape. I am very opposed to having, bike paths on the street and a multi-use path on both sides of the street and cutting down the trees that need to be cut down. My suggestion, and I'm not trying to monopolize this because I'd like everybody else's input, but why not use impervious asphalt for the multi-use path? Why not make it, instead of a straight multi-use path, if we can save more trees by having it go around trees and have it wind a little bit, why not do that? I heard the fella talk, and I don't know who it was at the council meeting. I don't know if he was a staff person or one of the engineers, but they talked about the need to regrade rather than using a guardrail. And I'm thinking, I think the speed limit on Lacy Road, help me out on that, Bill, but I think the speed limit is proposed to be 35 or 40 miles an hour. Is that right?
35, correct.
Then I think a guardrail should be sufficient for that kind of speed. I don't think that there's any need, just because the city went all out on East Lacy Road, that we need to do the same thing on West Lacy Road. I think we need to be a little more sensitive to the people who aren't bicyclists, who are concerned about, first of all, the cost, secondly, the trees, and thirdly, the stormwater issues. So that's my 2 cents with a little bit more.
Bill, can you just give us an overview real quick, please?
Sure. The proposed cross section that we had put before the council and the committees for consideration would be having 2-foot curb and gutter sections, it looks like a 5-foot bike lane or a 5-foot shoulder, of which 2 of that would be the curb and gutter, a 10-foot wide multi-use path, a 7-foot terrace on the north side, graded for a terrace runoff area on the south side of the road, no sidewalk on the south side anymore. We're looking at impervious or pervious pavement, like you had mentioned. We can only use it in certain areas where the grades are flatter, so it will infiltrate. Otherwise, the runoff just runs right off of it if the grades are too steep. So that's something that we can look at, in the lower areas. Environmentally, we did reduce the pavement area by about 17%, the runoff volume by 17%, by reducing cross sections already based upon the input of the public. We're also going to have 100% stay on infiltration on the East Basin. Commerce, where Commerce Park will connect, is the top of the hill. And so we've got an east of Commerce and a west of Commerce area. The east of Commerce, we will have 100% stay on within that area for infiltration. And on the west end, we are going to have infiltration for that basin over there, but it's not going to be constructed until such time as the subdivision that's proposed south of there, over toward Fitchburg Road. When they propose what their stormwater management is, they will size the infiltration for the ultimate basin for that entire area. So we are looking at doing that. With regard to the trees, we did steepen up the grades as much as we could through that area. We're looking at retaining walls, but retaining walls come at an expense too. And that, that's something that we're going to look at through the design process. So when we have the bike lanes or we don't have bike lanes on the road, we don't want to create a situation where the road is too narrow, where people might ride on there and create a hazard for either the bikes or the cars that have to swerve around them. But hopefully there's a compromise in between there. And I think we do have a compromise if we have the 5-foot shoulder, of which we would have about 3 foot of area outside of the bike lanes. But yeah, we are looking at, as reducing the pavement throughout that area as much as we can, the width. And we're working with, like you said, the guardrail on the south side, so we don't have to grade as much on the south side. But yeah, it's going to be difficult to meet everybody's needs throughout this.
Bill, if we didn't have the bike lane there, but we had the multi-use trail, would that save some trees?
When we looked at, if we didn't have we didn't have the bike lanes, we would save about 4 to 5 feet of pavement. And then what that relates to horizontally is on the outer grading limit. I can kind of show you on my screen here what that relates to here. Let's get back up here. I'll zoom in here for you. This is the area of the most significant cut area. This is the quarry entrance that you see by Hammersley on the north side. And when with our proposed cross section with the bike lanes, the buffered bike lanes, it's the orange line. And when we took the bike lanes, the buffered part off and reduced it another foot, the green line was the area for that grading limit. So it's only reducing it, 5 to 10 feet in those cut areas where we're having to cut through that hill. So it doesn't reduce it a lot by taking the bike lanes off of the road, but it does reduce it some. So you'd be saving the trees in that 5 to 10 foot area in between the green and the orange line if there's a tree in that area. Otherwise, everything south of the green line would have to come out to be able to grade the the steeper slopes in there. And like I said, we are looking at retaining walls. If you were to install a 10-foot retaining wall in there, along there, I think it was around 1,000 feet of retaining wall that would be needed. That's going to increase the cost to another $1.3 million based on that expense. So we could save the trees, but it's going to increase the cost to do that.
Mhm.
If I can jump in here real quick, Mrs. Gabriella, I've been part of a lot of discussions on this because I'm on transportation committee as well as council. And if you're interested, there was quite a long conversation at the April 14th Transportation and Transit Committee meeting where we dug into a lot of these details. And then again, there was a pretty extensive conversation at the April 27th council meeting that lasted more than an hour. But I think a lot of the questions I think the committee's going to have are answered in the agenda packet for those meetings and in the conversations themselves. Also, the Transportation Transit Committee is meeting on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. and there'll be some more information presented at that meeting. And then the cross section will come back to council on May 26th. So Diane and any of the council members that are, the committee members that are interested in commenting on it, I would encourage you to come to give testimony, either written or in person. But I honestly, we could talk about this for an hour. I think I personally participated in at least 10 hours of discussion on this. So, and I would be happy to follow up with anybody and answer questions, but I would encourage you, if you're interested in this topic, which many of you may be, to potentially visit those or look through the agenda packet for the last council meeting, which has a lot more detail on the cross-section and what the work that's been done. And that's on the website as well.
Yeah.
I would also
Gabriella,
offer, I'm sorry, I'd also offer along as far as outreach, to reach out to myself or Andrew, who have a lot of, experience and know the details of the questions that you're asking. So more than happy to, take the time to answer any of your questions and go over it in more detail.
It's my understanding the council is voting on this at their May meeting, and I'm not sure exactly what they're voting on, but the reason that I asked for this to be in the agenda today was so that we could give feedback to Gabriella and she could take it to the council meeting or the transit meeting, or just represent what RCC's concerns are. When East Lacy Road was changed, a lot of oak trees came down, a lot of very mature trees came down, and somebody justified that by saying that new trees were planted, but the new trees that were planted don't nearly sequester the same amount of carbon that the trees that were taken down did. And at some point, I don't know what that 1 million, what percentage that is of the total cost of the road, quote unquote, improvements. But at some point we have to stop cutting down these big trees and do what we can to preserve them. And I don't know, I've driven in that area, but I haven't walked in the West Lacy Road area, so I don't know what trees we're talking about. I don't know if these are desirable oak trees or, if these are undesirable buckthorn. But if the desirable trees, I think that, it's time for the city to start making an effort to preserve those. And if the difference between the orange and the green is 5 feet or 8 feet, that's 5 or 8 feet. That's 5 or 8 feet more of pervious surface and 5 or 8 feet, possibly more of trees that can be saved. And I think that there needs to be some priority put to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just add a quick comment. I think, I kind of experience this on a daily basis driving down, when I was driving daily, down McCoy Road. And we have the Capital City Trail right next to that. And, sometimes, when I'm on the road and we have the trail right there, I wonder, we have the multi-use trail. We don't have necessarily bike lanes, on McCoy Road, but people will bike up there. And sometimes I think to myself, and I'm a person that bikes, I'm thinking, why can't they just be on the multi-use trail? It's, it can go, plenty fast on that trail, maybe not as fast as a road, but, and I think that you're trying to do this from what I've seen and what I've heard, you're trying to find a compromise, on it and trying to find where you can, reduce things. But, I just know that, as a motorist, sometimes that can be frustrating, when the multi-use path is right there.
I have to agree. I do travel the same path that Chris does quite a lot, but I also know that I don't want to hit anybody. I just don't want to hit anybody. And I won't ride my bike on the sidewalk, and I won't ride it on a street that has no place for a bike. So for those people that would like to travel via their bike down Lacy and save gas, I think that it's important that we push for the bike path. Just my 2 cents.
Shelley, when you say the bike path, you mean the multi-use trail or the bike lanes?
Bike lanes.
I might point out that on John Nolan Drive, which gets a heck of a lot more traffic than Lacy Road, there's just a multi-use path, and there's a lot, not only a lot more traffic, vehicle traffic, but there's a lot more bike traffic and pedestrian traffic, and that works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would just point out the difference there is we're proposing a single lane facility on Lacy Road. So if the cars were to swerve around a bike on John Nolan, they've got an extra lane to move over into. Whereas on Lacy Road, a lot of this, they would go right into oncoming traffic if they were to swerve around a bike on the road. Mm-hmm. But we just need to give them a little bit of space if they do end up there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we have, technically 7 minutes left, and this is
Thanks, Bill.
I think it was a very good discussion to have. Claudia, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying thanks to Bill because I thought he was about to sign off. Sorry.
Yeah. Me too. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, if you've got more questions, please reach out to myself or Andrew. We'd be more than happy to go over more details with you.
Yeah, and I agree with Diane. It seems like we were kind of late to the game, so I wish we'd had some more time to discuss and talk about that. But Gabrielle's right. There's a lot of places where we can go visit and attend the different meetings to hear what's going on. So
yeah, and I'm happy to have a conversation with any of you too. If you think you want your perspective represented at council, I'm happy to have that conversation. So reach out to me, or certainly I'll submit testimony for the May 26th vote as well.
Okay, so let's move on to item 5, agenda items, old business. But before we start that, we're definitely going to go over the 9 o'clock limit. Is that okay with everyone?
Is there anything that needs to be voted on? I have a 9 o'clock, 5 after 9 meeting with a client.
I think we're all done with the voting part of it.
Okay, I'll just step out around 9-ish then.
Okay. Well, we'll try to move it efficiently as we can here. So Joint Tree Committee, RCC Biodiversity Event, Chris?
Yeah, I'll try to go through this quickly. So we did have a meeting on March 18th, and we're able to kind of figure this out. So we do have a date set for this tree diversity event. It's going to be June 17th at 6:30 at Quarry Hill Park. It's going to be like between an hour and a quarter and an hour and a half. We were discussing not having food at this particular event, and we're going to be asking people to bring their own lawn chairs. Jeremy Hecht from the Tree Diversity Committee is going to be working on a 1 to 2 page handout for attendees. And then what we'll be focused on are the 16 different tree species at Quarry Hill Park. So we would have a speaker. We have lined a speaker up, an expert on tree diversity from Cambridge that is willing to come and speak at the event. So that person would speak for a little bit, and then between him and Anna Healy, they would take 2 groups that we would keep socially distanced, and they would go and just kind of talk about 8 trees for about 5 minutes apiece, on those trees. So we also have some tree labels that would be going in. So this is a great way to learn about tree diversity. We do have another meeting tomorrow where we're going to try to put some more details on it and start to talk about our marketing for the event. Will be family friendly, and we are planning to get Fact TV to to provide footage of it.
You said
So-
that was June 17th?
Yep, it's a
And where's
Thursday
that?
night,
What times, Chris?
6:30,
And where?
Quarry Hill Park.
Quarry Hill Park, okay. Is that what day of the week is that?
It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Do you have a rain date?
It's not going to rain that day.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that tomorrow and probably push it a week later, I think.
Okay.
Any comments, questions? Feel free to email me if you have any comments.
I plan to be
But
there.
there should be some more details coming out on it.
Is this going to be posted on Fitchburg's website?
Yeah, we'll do all kind of our normal outreach for an event. So website and flyer and social media posts.
So will you include a map for the location?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Chris. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Diane, the Fitchburg Star articles?
Well, I don't have minutes from the March meeting, and I don't remember who's next up for an article.
I'm
I thought
next.
Pardon me?
I'm next.
Oh, and what is it on?
Tree diversity.
Oh, good. Good.
Good timing. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron, for moving yours up a little bit. I appreciated
fine.
that.
Yeah, there should be one on birds coming out soon.
Yeah, it should be out next week, I think. Good.
Yeah, and thank you
The-
everyone for your comments on it. It was really helpful.
I think then we can just move on from star articles. We'll include this on the next agenda and talk about the next one after that. Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, Gabrielle, item 6, council update.
Well, fortunately, a lot of the resolutions that I would normally talk about, we have actually seen because we're getting more referred to RCC, which that's exciting. One thing I'll say that was mentioned last time, but the Lake Barney Stormwater and Flood Mitigation Report did happen at the March 24th Committee of the Whole meeting with Claudia and one of the contractors that worked on that project. It's very interesting. If you're interested in that project, I would recommend you take a look at it. The results are pretty fascinating. There are 3 new alders on the council as of the last election. Jay Allen in District 3, Jim Wheeler in District 4, and Dave Herbst in District 1. So that's, a lot of changes happening. And then we will have a new administrator come July. Chief Chad Brecklin, our current police chief, has been hired as a city administrator, and we're going to start a search for the police chief. And that's all.
Okay. And Gabrielle, is there a way that we could meet these new alders, one at a time or something at one of our meetings, or they just, show up for 5 minutes and just tell us about themselves?
I don't think we've typically done that. I mean, honestly, I think if you're interested in meeting them, reaching out to them and introducing yourself as the chair of RCC or as a member of RCC, I think that would be really valuable. I mean, me as a council member, I like knowing the people that are on the committees. I can let them know that they're invited to come. I will let them know that they're invited to come to the meeting and check out RCC and get to know us if they want.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you.
Ron, one of the purposes of our annual report used to be to get us in front of the council so that we could explain what RCC does. That's not generally covered in the council orientation. But I don't think we're on their calendar to do any kind of a presentation this year. So
I can get us on the committee of the whole calendar if that's of interest to the committee, and we can maybe discuss that offline and figure out. But I can make that request. Randy Udell is the new council president, and I can talk to him about that. We might be able to work that in, and maybe we do it as a committee to kind of take some of the pressure off of Claudia and Phil and just talk about what we do.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value in that.
I think
Okay.
that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it is too. Thank you, Gabrielle. All right, item 7, staff update, solid waste.
So in the past, I've gone through and actually read the bullets here on the staff update. I think in the interest of time, maybe I'll just ask if there are any questions or any topics that anyone wants me to discuss further.
I didn't have any.
Okay.
Do you want to announce the date for the recycling? Oh, I'm sorry, that's not stormwater.
Oh, yes. So the fall recycling event is set for Saturday, November 6th from 8 to 11 a.m. Yeah, so that's that. Also included in the packet are ways to get rid of your confidential material and other options that you have to recycle electronics if you are looking to get rid of that material in your homes before that date.
Okay.
Claudia, are you going to post that also on Fitchburg's website?
And I think it already is. I'll double check,
Okay.
but I believe it is. And it's coming out in the upcoming Star as well.
Oh, perfect. Good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. Stormwater?
Thank you to RCC and the volunteers who made the waterway cleanup a huge success. I have some photos in there of that. And so I guess that was the one I wanted to mention. Did anyone have questions or comments on the other bullet items we have here?
Claudia, were you able to get some pictures and a thank you in the next issue of the Star? Thank you to all the people who helped.
It did, yes. So that
Good.
should be there this time.
Great. Good.
Okay, great. Thank you. And finally, sustainability. Phil?
Yeah, I can kind of follow the same. I don't know if there's anything else to add on the 4 items I included for sustainability.
Well, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not part of what you have here, but just something for you to think about. I noticed that Madison is going to provide or going to offer grants to non-subsidized housing to make energy improvements, energy efficiency improvements, and thereby lower the cost of housing for the occupants. I can't remember if it's primarily rental facilities or if it's just general housing. And I know that you're on the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, correct? So I'm wondering if Fitchburg has thought about doing anything like that and maybe teaming up with MG&E to offer grants to the unsubsidized housing in Fitchburg to make it more affordable?
So I guess I said too soon. There's not a Healthy Neighborhoods Committee per se. There is the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative that Wade, our community development planner, is leading up. I'm not familiar with Fitchburg doing anything like that, and I certainly could ask him if that's been discussed. I know that there was a group trying to get some funding from the Public Service Commission's Office of Energy Innovation that we wrote a letter in support of, and we're hoping that they would receive that grant. And their goal was to pursue things along those lines, not just energy efficiency, but water savings and other ways to make to save money in housing, especially for first-time home buyers. But I don't know of anything like that Fitchburg is doing right now. It would be something I'd have to look into. I think right now, if people are looking for those kinds of savings, generally we would direct them to focus on energy, to look for rebates there.
Well, we had this discussion. We touched on this briefly, and I don't want to take up a lot of time today because this is we're already way over time. But we've had this discussion a couple of times that rental units who pay their occupants who pay their own utilities, the landlord really doesn't have any incentive to do anything water conservation or electricity or gas. It's all, in my opinion, energy efficiency. But and this might be one way to get those things accomplished, to get that to bring their utility bills down, and so anyway, maybe you could give this some thought and see if this is a possibility.
Yeah, I could definitely look into it. Did you happen to see where Madison was getting their funding from for that?
I think actually, Chris, I think Sustain Dane is part of this initiative, and maybe they could tell. I'm not sure if Sustain Dane. I don't know how they acquired the funding, but the announcement was made by the Madison mayor and the Sustain Dane CEO, so she might be able to help you out.
Yeah, I could reach out to Claire. That'd be something for me to look into.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Yeah, and then one quick note that I guess I'll add in. I sometimes get some feedback on the e-newsletters, those green e-newsletters that I send out. For the April Earth Month one, I got a couple of notes back, but one that I thought worth noting in particular was somebody who's actually a Madison resident. Said he's been reading the green e-newsletters for a while and appreciates not just those, but he specifically called out the RCC. Said he's familiar with what the RCC does in Fitchburg, and he was just really had a lot of admiration for what this commission works on and what it has accomplished. So it's something that has gotten noticed not just within Fitchburg, but some of our neighbors as well.
Well,
Thanks for sharing that. That's nice to hear.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on sustainability with Phil? If not, next item is item 8, the announcement. Is there a change in the June meeting?
So I just want to note in the packet, I have it written that the next meeting is Monday, June 9. It looks like I didn't update the day of the week. So it is June 9, but that's a Wednesday.
So it's Monday, June 9th?
It's Wednesday, June 9.
Oh, Wednesday, June 9th. Okay.
Well, in the agenda, it has June 14th and June 9th. Is that just an error?
Yeah, there was 2 things in the agenda, so I was wondering what the difference was.
I'm not sure why that's listed there twice, to be honest. That's not, I guess, how I put it in there.
So scratch item A.
I think that's the old meeting date, and then the June 9 one is the one that we had coordinated with the doodle poll, because the old meeting date had a conflict with the council chambers.
Okay.
So apologies for that.
I have a I don't think usually there's an other on here, I think, but anyway, do we have any update on a new RCC member?
So no one has been appointed as of yet. I think I heard that the appointment may occur tomorrow at council.
Yeah, I can look up the name real quick. It's on the Common Council's agenda for tomorrow night.
We did get some applications.
We did, yes.
Okay. Also, any idea when we might be meeting in person again?
I think the option currently exists if you would like to go in person to the council chambers. Gabriella is there currently. As of right now, it's continuing as a hybrid with no, I guess, end date for when we're required to go back in person.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
The new person is Joshua Knackert. He will be voted on tomorrow, and I hope he'll attend. Typically, new appointments attend the meeting to introduce themselves.
How do you spell his last name?
Knackert.
Knact.
I'm sorry. Knackert.
Okay.
Knackert. Claudia, is he the fellow who helped with the waterway cleanup?
No, that was a different fellow.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with this one. I did give in a good word for the other fellow, but I'm sure this person is great too. So,
unfortunately, his application is not in the agenda packet, but I think that's publicly available information. I can probably send that out to the commission if I can. I'll have to track it down and double check that I can send it. But
the person who helped with the waterway cleanup did go through and apply, and that's not who the mayor selected?
That is my understanding. I don't personally get, asked for my opinion when that happened. So, and I didn't have a conversation with the mayor. I don't know exactly what factors went into that. I know sometimes if folks from RCC give a good word in for folks, that sometimes gets taken into consideration. I don't know if anyone did that for the person who did the waterway cleanup. I know I did, but I mean, I'm staff. I don't know if anyone from RCC did that. And I mean, I don't know who this other person is. Maybe the mayor has knowledge of him and just thought he was a great fit.
I'm at least, I had to look this up to confirm, I'm at least familiar with Josh. I'm on the Dane County Environmental Council and Josh serves on that board as well. So I've at least interacted with him before. I'm about 2 meetings into my term there.
It's just too bad that somebody stepped forward and helped us. And I mean, I didn't know that if he actually applied. I know he was considering it, but so I've never met him. But it would have been nice to at least mention that his contribution to the mayor.
Yeah, I mean, we could always add them to the community outreach subcommittee to kind of get their feet wet, and then, you know, I think we're down to kind of back to our core of me and Sharon and Kim and you know, maybe Phil. So, you know, we could probably use another person there to help out. So
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's what I was
Chris.
gonna suggest too.
Good idea. So maybe you can get the contact information from Claudia?
sure, that would be great.
Perfect, yeah.
For future reference as well, the alders get the applications for committees automatically. So if you are ever curious if someone's applied to a commission, you can reach out to either me or whichever alder you work with, and they should be able to tell you whether or not someone's, you know, as part of a commission. I think they can tell you that. So
how many people applied for RCC, Gabriella?
to be honest, I have to look through. I get them one by one. I don't get like a packet. I just get like individual applications on a rolling basis.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Is there any other business?
I hope not.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. And thank you for.
You don't need a motion.
I didn't mean a motion. Okay, that's right. We're done at a pre-selected time, so.
Even if you're not, you don't need a motion.
Okay. Well, then
Done.
I would like to adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, thank you,
All right,
everyone.
nice job, everyone.